How's everyone doing? It's Mike the Gardener. Today is May 20th. It's about 6 a.m. I'm up early, or should I say I'm up late, as I haven't gone to sleep yet. But I want to give this update on our garden 1 week from my first video. As you can see, we brought in a fence for our lettuce patch. We used the broken tomato stakes and stapled chicken wire around. There's a small gap on either end, but hopefully that doesn't cause any problems. So here we have blueberries starting to form on our healthier blueberry bushes. The blueberry bush that wasn't doing quite as well before has turned green now, and there's some new leaves, so it seems to be doing better. It seems as if the kale has gotten a little bit bigger since it went in, and all of the lettuce plants seem like they're doing all right. There are a few leaves dying off the bottom, but other than that, everything seems fine over here. Moving into the main garden, we have a few updates on switching out some of the plants. We're going to start with the herbs. As you can see, the oregano looks good. One of the plants isn't doing as well, but there's going to be plenty of oregano here coming up soon. Thyme and parsley both look like they're doing well. The basil, you can see, is sort of leaning towards the sunlight. Actually, if you look here, you can see the first sets of flowers are starting to come in, so I'll have to trim those off. We planted another 4 rosemary plants. The mint has started to grow. It looks like there's some damaged leaves closer towards the bottom. We'll have to watch those. The sage has gone in. The cilantro looks good. And the dill has about doubled. And the chives look fine. Moving on to tomatoes, we've planted these 4 Super 100s. And as you can see, there's some yellowing in the bottom leaves. And some purpling, as you can see there. So we're trying to make sure that we get these guys the right nutrients. 8 plants to the immediate left when you enter the garden and the immediate right when you enter the garden are Super 100s. Moving on, we have our healthiest plants, which are the Cherokee Purples, 4 of those. These are the best tasting tomatoes you're ever going to find. We've had problems in the past with them cracking a lot, but the flavor is second to none. Okay, coming up here, it looks like we have a leaner. So we'll take care of that here in a second. But these are our mortgage lifters and are delicious. We switched out a couple of them, so now we have a mix. Aromas continue to be looking okay. When these plants get a little bit bigger, we're going to bring in mulch and mulch all of this out to help out with moisture retention and water consistency. So here are our greens. I actually switched out one of them right there with a Mr. Stripey. And then we have our 3 that we grew from seed. As you can see, there is some damage on the leaves. Obviously, I didn't do a great job hardening these guys off. And then here are the pineapples. And once again, we've switched out some of these with Mr. Stripey. So now we have our, our heirloom style tomatoes in these 16 plants. And now we have Mortgage Lifters, Delicious, Cherokee Purple, Pineapple, Mr. Stripey, and Emerald Evergreen. So we added 3 varieties. See that there's some sort of a nutritional problem with the lower leaves. There's some yellowing, and then they've started to kind of turn this brownish purple. We fed these when they went in with Miracle Grow just to get them started, and then moving forward we'll probably be using fish emulsion. And we water every other night, so we'll have to try to make sure that we stay consistent. These are the yellow pearls. As you can see, the one that was doing well before is doing even better. And this guy is leggy and he already has his support. He's got some leaf damage, but the top growth seems to be fine and green. So if we can keep him supported, he should be okay. And the same thing here. This was a 2-stemmer. It looks like we're gonna lose our second stem. So I'm just gonna pinch that off right now. And then you can see here that there's a pretty good amount of sun scald on some of these leaves, but the top growth, the new growth, is looking really good. So hopefully that continues. As you can see here, with the warmth that we're having, the squash are starting to go crazy. All of these plants had 1 leaf when they went in last week, and so they've quadrupled in size. And you can see here the same thing for the cucumbers. Grow up into these tomato cages. We don't use tomato cages for tomatoes, but we do use them as somewhere for the cucumbers to vine out. Okay, and so the final part of the update will be the pepper garden, and I want to give an explanation of our fence. So there are 9 T-posts. There are 3 going down either side, 1 going across the back, 1 going across the front, and then another one that's further past it. So these 2 overlap, which creates a walkway. And then we block the walkway with a stack of tomato cages to keep the deer out. And for the most part, deer aren't very smart. And so far, they haven't figured out how to get in here. So let's start. So these are Thai dragons that we've topped. You can see a few of the leaves are going yellow. I'm not sure. The soil has a good amount of moisture. It's not too wet, not too dry. So I'm not sure if it's a watering issue or if it's a nutritional issue. They also got the same Miracle Grow when they went into their buckets, so they'll need it in a couple of days, but they should be okay. These are the cayennes. A lot of new growth around the bottom of these guys. They're really starting to fill out. And what I did was, any pepper that had more than 4 plants, I topped half of them. And essentially what topping is going to do is it's going to cause the plants to bush out, but it's also going to delay the growing season. And so what the thinking is that by topping some of the plants and not topping others, we should have a pretty consistent production season from, say, the middle of July until the frost comes in October or November. So moving up here, we have our ghost peppers that are doing, looks like they're doing pretty well. This guy here in the bottom right might not be doing quite as well. And then here's another Thai dragon. This one's not topped. A couple yellow leaves happening. For the most part, it looks okay. And then we have our apocalypse scorpion in these four. It looks like they're doing all right. You can see that the ground's starting to crack as the top layer dries out. It's been very wet, and then it's alternating really hot and really cold. So today the high is going to be close to 90, but then tomorrow it's only going to be around 70. And so the weird weather isn't really helping anything. So we're just trying to stay on top of it. We have frogs are back, finally. Little dudes just chilling. Here we have a cayenne that has been topped. And I think you can just start to see the first, if I can focus in on it here. Okay, I don't think it's going to want to focus, but I think the first new growth is happening after the top. So that plant all in all looks pretty good. Here's a lemon drop. The plant was struggling pretty badly after the original rainstorm when they were planted, but it seems to be making a pretty good recovery. This guy on the left was pretty fallen over, and I had to keep picking it back up. And then here's a cayenne that isn't topped. As you can see, they're significantly taller. And significantly less bushy than the topped peppers. And then we have a serrano that's not topped, and you can actually see that there's a pod there. So this is actually going to be ready to be topped if we're going to end up topping this one. And here's a chocolate habanero. A little bit of damage on these lower leaves, but it looks like we're getting some good growth happening here. And then just for, there's our little froggy friend. We have a Carolina Reaper. Once again, there's, some leaf damage from the rain, but these seem to be doing pretty well. And then here's one of the experimental plants. So all of the buckets are a 50-50 mix of topsoil and peat moss, except this bucket and this bucket. And these are just all topsoil, and neither of them are doing nearly as well. And so you can see that this is another chocolate habanero. And it's just not doing too well. There's a lot of leaf damage. There are some new leaves coming up that look pretty healthy, so maybe it'll be fine. And same thing here. Obviously this leaf isn't doing too well. It just came right off when I touched it. And same thing for this. But there are a few leaves on the inside that are looking okay. So these are the lemon drops. And unfortunately they took a beating in the rain. I'm not too sure how they're doing actually. The lemon drops that are in the cups in the extra section look like they're doing a lot better. I'm not going to go ahead and switch them out yet, because I think they should be fine. Pepper plants are pretty hardy, but we're gonna have to keep an eye on those. And here you can really see the cracking. The top layer is dried out, but the bottom, the soil is moist, which is okay. it kind of forms a crust. Our biggest experiment so far, which is with the jalapenos. And so the 4 on the top aren't topped, and then the 4 on the bottom are topped. And so you can see these plants are going to be fairly behind, right? They have enough left to do photosynthesis, but the untopped plants are almost flowering. And so we can expect to probably see some early jalapenos on those guys. And then moving up here, these are chocolate habaneros too. So you can see that compared to the other chocolate habaneros, these guys are doing really, really well. Much bigger, just all around doing really well. And then our last bucket here is 2 ghost peppers, the boot jalokias. So all in all, we have 4 serranos, 4 Thai dragons, 8 cayennes, 12 chocolate habaneros, 8 jalapenos, 8 lemon drops, 4 apocalypse scorpions, and 8 Carolina reapers, I believe. And the reality is likely won't be able to eat much of this. We're gonna be dehydrating and pickling and grinding and using a tiny piece to make chili and things like that. But if we end up with hundreds and hundreds of Carolina reapers or ghost peppers or apocalypse scorpions, it's gonna end up just going to waste. One thing that's a bit concerning here is I'm not sure if this is some kind of a mold on the ground. That's a little bit concerning. I'm gonna have to keep my eye on that. And then I'm gonna have to keep my eye on these plants. On this we have this 4-foot wire mesh, and then eventually there will be fishing line that goes around the T-posts, similar to the other garden. And then there's an internal fence, which is the same as the pepper garden fence. The difference here is that these aren't raised beds. This is a kind of a hybrid raised bed where we dug it into the earth and then tilled the ground together and brought dirt in. So this garden is a combination of the natural soil and soil that we brought in. And you can see where we walk in the garden starts to get trampled down. So this is fairly fluffy, but this row is kind of trampled. And there's an extra foot gap here. So all of these plants are 2 feet by 2 feet. And then the squash are 2 feet by 2 feet, and then the cucumbers are kind of haphazardly planted. So you can see that this is setting fruit. This is already setting fruit. And I actually don't know if this is a determinate or an indeterminate plant. If it's determinate, then I'll just let it go. If it's indeterminate, then I'll take off all of these flowers. So these 8 plants are Roma tomatoes, which replace the San Marzano Longo number 2s. And in my last video, I said that when these got to be 3 feet tall, we'd be pruning them. But what I failed to look up was if they were indeterminate or determinate plants. And because they're determinate plants, I'm not really interested in pruning them very much. What I will do is make sure that nothing's touching the ground. But other than that, I'm not going to prune them. When you have an indeterminate plant, the idea of eliminating suckers has to do with keeping a single producing stalk that creates vertical growth. Oh, actually, hold on a second. We've got something interesting, which is a turtle. He's hiding now. You can see his little head. So that's kind of fun. We have had a frog and a turtle in this video. Anyways, getting back to the video, these determinate types are only going to get about 4 feet tall, and then they'll flower and fruit and die off. Whereas the rest of the plants in here are indeterminates, and so they're going to continue to grow and produce fruit so long as the plant's alive. And that's where things like airflow and disease prevention measures start to come into play. But for the most part, with these Romas, they're going to grow to 4 feet tall, they're going to produce a set amount of fruit, and then they're going to... Okay, so that about wraps up our second garden update. We went over our herbs, which are all growing well. We talked about getting the right nutrients on our Super 100 so that they don't have yellow and brown and purple leaves. We talked about switching out some of our pineapples, Cherokee purples, mortgage lifters, and evergreen emeralds. We talked about replacing our San Marzanos with Romas, pruning determinate versus indeterminate plants, and replacing our Roma. We looked at our pepper plants, and we talked briefly about topping some of them. And we talked about our lettuce beds, our blueberries, which you can see. So as you can see, in the past 10 or so minutes, the turtle has made his way into the garden. And so we're gonna have to see where he goes and what his plans are. If his plans are going in here, he's gonna have to go. But he's certainly free to munch on all of this grass. About 4 hours of direct sun in the morning, and then about 4 hours of partial sun in the afternoon. The pepper garden gets about 4 hours of partial sun in the morning, and then about 4 hours of direct sun in the afternoon, and then about an hour or two of partial sun as you head into the evening. And the lettuce garden gets about 4 hours of partial sun from around noon to 4, and then around 4 hours of full sun from 4 to 8. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed the second garden update. There will be another one next week, and I'm hoping to see some real big growth. The average temperature in the next 7 days is going to be around 82 degrees. And the coldest night will be tomorrow at around 60 degrees. And so that's when these plants should start to take off, when they get another dosage of fertilizer and a week of 80-degree day and 60-degree nights. You're going to hopefully see these guys double. And maybe you'll even start to see some lettuce for harvest and some herbs for harvest. So once again, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to like it and subscribe. There will be garden update videos at least once a week. And there will be specific garden videos, for example, on our topping experiments as, topics come up. So I would expect to see, some various videos in between the updates on this channel. And I look forward to seeing you guys in a few days.